Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a fantastic guest. Wherever you go around town, it seems like you see this person because he's currently the president of the Chamber of Commerce, the king of the crew of Omega. He's active in everything from the American Legion to the Rotary Club. You name it, this guy's there. He's a local business owner of a very prominent, well-known local business. But what I really admire about him is he seems to step up and take the difficult jobs. He steps into leadership. He volunteers quickly, and he doesn't seem to be about all the pomp and circumstance and credit. So I bring with you, with no further ado, my friend Brandon Phares. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you being here. Why don't we kick things off with you just telling our viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself?
I had a very rough last 3 days. A couple of months out of the year around the election cycles, I work for the Registrar of Voters office. And we've kind of been doing a lot of training for this closed primary coming up next year. But for the past couple of days, we've been spending a lot of hours prepping and stuffing absentee ballots to mail out to those that can't make it to the polls. And it's takes a lot of time.
I bet. And I want to thank you for that service because, it's not lost on me as as someone whose whole childhood and adulthood seems to revolve around elections. My dad won 6 elections for sheriff. My brother won 6 elections for chief of police. So it was a huge part of our livelihood, getting elected, getting reelected. But, just as an American, it's not lost on me that this right we have to vote, to choose our own leaders and policies is a precious one. And we should not take it for granted. And we should be very appreciative of folks like you that step up to serve and to do the hard work, to prepare ballots, to work election days, to do all that you and your colleagues do. And sadly, it seems to me from the cheap seats of a guy who's just showing up to vote that you guys are underappreciated. And I know a lot of people love to gripe and moan, but you've chosen a very, neutral job there, right? You're just trying to make sure that this process is done with integrity. But maybe people don't give you the credit that it's due and the appreciation, and they love to bitch and moan about, what they're unhappy about. So if nobody else has said, thank you, Brandon, for doing that job, let me be one person to do that. And I hope that's one of many. What spurred you to do that? How'd you get involved in election?
I've been an election day commissioner probably for a little over 20 years now.
Wow.
And I filled in one election at the registrar's office because they needed a little extra help, and just kind of rolled from there.
Well, if you've done it that long, of course, you've probably worked closely with our late registrar of voters, John Russell, Fat Rat, as we knew him in my family. He was kind of a childhood hero of mine. When Bree and I were little, he and his wife, Miss Faye, would have us over to their house. We'd spend the night. They'd babysit us, feed us all the delicious sugary cereals my mom would not permit. So I learned about Count Chocula in that house. He would, give us rides on his wheelchair, popping wheelies the whole time. He and my dad worked very closely at the sheriff's office for many years before he became registrar. And he was just a dear friend. So I hope in your service through that, you got some time to work with him because, in 48 years of life, he was certainly one of the great men that I came across. And anyway, I just hope you had that experience. If you don't mind, let's go back in time. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, kind of like where you came up and what you were into and just what childhood was like for you.
Lived on Bay Street in Amite since I was born. Moved out to Robert, early teens, probably 7th, 8th grade. Went to Champ Cooper for quite a while before we moved out there.
Cool.
Yeah, we district shops. So I'm going to be honest about that.
Wait, I'm sorry. I think I talked over you. Would you mind repeating that? My apologies.
I said we district shopped. I went to Champ Cooper for a little while before actually living in the district, which is why I paused earlier because I told on myself.
You're not alone in that. I've seen some interesting what I'll call school choices. I remember not long ago there was a well-known and prominent, successful student athlete at Ponchatoula High School whose father was an elected official who was elected in another parish, and it's like How can we have a job over here that requires you to live in this district and a school over here that requires you to? I never did too much digging there, but it's not that uncommon. And Champ, it speaks to how good a school Champ Cooper is. They've done a great job there over the years. Um, that must have been kind of a fun kind of country life out that way, though, living in Robert, going to Champ Cooper. I mean, less traffic than you and I see day to day here in the heart of Ponchatoula, no doubt.
Right, right. It was definitely a slower pace of life. Fun, just plenty of space to do whatever you wanted to do. Stuff that we can't do here in the city, just four-wheelers, dirt bikes, just everything. Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed visiting my country pals when I was a kid, for the exact reasons you mentioned. So who were influences in your life? And when I say influences, we could be talking teachers, coaches, family members, friends, you name it. But kind of when you think back to childhood and the people who mattered most to you and why, who comes to mind?
I probably would have to say my maternal grandfather was the first, and it was his work ethic. Like every time I turned around, he seemed to be at work. He was a funeral director, so it was a very hard job, but he enjoyed it. He enjoyed helping families, and just seeing the dedication that he put into what he did was it.
I bet that was quite an example because, you know, one thing his profession shares with mine and with many others is that you're dealing with folks as they encounter some really tough circumstances. I mean, the loss of a loved one is just, profound and crippling in ways, emotionally and whatnot. In my world as an injury attorney, it can be really hard to deal with folks as they lose their health, their ability to make money, to provide for their family, and more. So I guess what I'm getting at here is it requires a great deal of compassion and empathy and just kind of horse smarts about how to deal with folks that are grieving and are going through a tough time. So to see someone who's, one, you mentioned work ethic, working hard, putting in the hours, the preparation and dedication to apply at their profession so well, but two, they're having to walk a tightrope in the process, right? Because they're not just flipping burgers or something that may be a little easier. They're really dealing with emotion and life events. I mean, what did you learn from that?
That you can very quickly say the wrong thing to somebody, not meaning to. And
Absolutely.
it just goes to, the state that they were in when they were having that conversation, and, just one wrong word or the way that they took what you said, it can change the whole conversation in a second.
Absolutely. And I thought about that. I did not mean to demean people who flip burgers. Folks know you're talking to a guy who worked at Hi-Ho for 4 years. And some of my favorite people I've ever met were the folks flipping burgers and preparing barbecue sandwiches for me to walk out to the tables. That's good, honest, hard work. I just meant to say that, you don't have to deal with a widow's tears while you're flipping a burger in a way that, your grandfather probably had to time and time again. So let's talk about the next. So exactly, that's my point. Anybody, professional lawyers, we can all put our foot in our mouth, whether it's a high stakes conversation like a loved one who's lost someone at a funeral, or a low stakes conversation like my little podcast here. But what a great lesson, what a great mentor to have as you think about the next chapter and where you move from childhood. What comes to mind?
Probably ROTC at Amy High.
Yeah, tell me about what you learned there. What was that like?
Honestly, it was a lot like being at home. I have two very loving but strict parents. So they kind of set me up for what the Marines expected. ROTC in high school was great.
Yeah.
Got to use it as a PE class, but it actually sent me to the Marines after I graduated high school.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for your service. Obviously, this time of year, veterans are on the mind. And I know I was planning to ask you about your role with the American Legion. I know you're very active with our local Legion here in Ponchatoula. But the Marine Corps, so many of my heroes in life, starting with Mr. Hollis Poche, who served, in the Pacific Theater in the Marine Corps, my best friend's grandfather, and just one of the greatest people Ponchatoula ever had, to many Marines that came thereafter. Tell us about what that means to you when you think of Simplify and this, everything from Montezuma to Tripoli. Tell us about that.
I'm just going to say whenever we graduated boot camp, we did the Crucible 96 hours. We finished. This is the first time they handed us our Eagle, Globe, and Anchor and call us Marines. There were probably about 24 of us that finished in my platoon, all 18, 19, 20-year-old guys, and not a single one of us had a dry eye. Like they play Lee Greenwood's God Bless America in the background while they're making their way through the crowd.
Great
and
song.
All of us just couldn't keep it together. It was that much of an emotional moment.
Wow, that's amazing. So how long did you serve, and where did it take you, and what did you learn while you did it?
4 years active, 4 years in the reserves. My first duty station was Camp Butler in Okinawa, which was quite a bit of change from Southeast Louisiana. But it was fun. Spent a year and a half over there. I got orders to Hawaii next, but like a goober, I traded them in for the naval support activity down in New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah, because that was my first time away from home, so I was a little homesick. I was ready to be back. Now thinking back on it, I kick myself every time because 3 years paid to live in Hawaii, and I traded it.
No, I get it. I did that, and this is obviously far apples and oranges for sure. Maybe not, maybe fruit to veggie comparison here. But when I was in college, I did a junior year program in Washington, and I remember just this profound homesickness. My parents dropped me off. I did not have a car. My buddies picked me up. I was just so looking forward to them picking me up, bringing me. If they would have let me come home 1, 2, 3 weeks earlier, I would have done it maybe a month earlier. And I look back now and I'm just like, what were you doing, man? You have your whole life to be here in Ponchatoula. You have such a brief window to be there. But when you're young and you miss your mama and her cooking, that's a really big deal. And so it's kind of neat to hear that no matter where you are in the world or what you're doing, if you're blessed with good parents, as you and I were, you miss them and you want to be home with your people. So that's really neat. Well, thank you for your service. To anyone listening, know that Ponchatoula has this outstanding first time ever veterans event coming up. It's on, I believe, November 1st. Is that right, Brandon? Can you confirm that? Would you mind sharing what that's going to be? As chamber president, you probably know more about it than I do. But I want to thank Schrader Dufresh, all the veterans involved, and the other people that are organizing it. But Brandon, would you mind telling us a little bit about that event?
Strader, our parish councilwoman, has put together a veterans, I don't say Veterans Day event because it's always going to be the first Saturday of November. But it's going to start off with a parade about 9:30. It's going to go from the Lions Club to Memorial Park. And once we get to the park, there's going to be a section of the park that's going to have, I don't say vendors, but providers of different information, products, services that veterans can take advantage of. There's going to be some food there. There's going to be entertainment. The Victory Bells are going to be there. There's going to be a car show in another portion of the parking lot.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So
thank you for sharing that. We're really excited about that. And, Ponchatoula is just getting so many fun fall events these days. Not long ago, we had the Crew of Aaron and their wonderful, Celtic Heritage Festival. Of course, we always do trade days events in spring and fall. There's the upcoming second annual Cancer Care Walk for Hope, which is the following week. It's November 8th. So it's really neat. Those are just a few of many events. We still, of course, live after 5 and whatnot. So it's fun to see Ponchatoula kind of on the up. A big part of that is the Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce has had highs, lows, bumps, and bruises, but it seems like we're really cruising now. We recently had a successful business expo. You're at the helm as the president. If you don't mind, share with us not only how you became involved with the chamber, assumed leadership, but what's going on with the chamber. What do we have to look forward to?
And 2 Octobers ago, I helped one of the chamber associates carry some stuff from the after hours at the fire department to her car. And then Jeff Wright stopped me at the door and said, I didn't know you're a part of the chamber. And the lady that I was helping said, he's not, but he's about to be.
You were voluntold to be
Oh,
in the chamber, and from that to the presidency in 2 years. Wow, that's quite a meteoric path, man. Congrats on
um, January of 24, I joined the board as an associate.
that.
And at our first meeting, we were voting on two actual board members. Um, and I don't know how to keep my mouth closed. So there were seven ladies on the board, and they were voting on two more. So
Mhm.
I made the comment, "Hey, can we get a guy up there?" So I was one of the two people voted on to fill those two spots. Um,
the
2 or 3 months later, they needed a secretary. So I volunteered. I'm like, I can take notes. It's not going to be a hard job. Um, well, they neglected to tell me that if something happens to the president and the vice president, then the secretary is the de facto president until the new one gets voted in. So that's how I ended up getting voted in as the president back in
So
July
you
of
were
last
basically like the designated survivor of the Ponchatoula Chamber of Commerce, and
year. Yeah,
wow.
we went through the order of secession until I got president.
Well, thank you for your service. It's obviously a thankless job at times, but I believe a really important one. We don't have to dig into the controversy of why the board shifted so much and leadership changed a little. But I can tell you this: I came on the scene just kind of to watch, and also as a member and community person to say, I think we need a chamber. I think it's a good organization. I like a lot of what they've done. And for those folks that wanted to do away with it, I just wanted to kind of be part of that no coalition that formed. And but it's tough and it's a lot of work. And you guys stepped up. Earlier this week, I had the privilege to see Ashley Jernigan, who I know has helped you with business expos and other stuff. And she and Benton and Kathleen and all these different people. And Corey and Josh, and there are too many to name. I don't want to leave any important people out. But to you and your colleagues that have stepped up, just know in my little pocket of the world, my little law firm, we just have 10 employees, 5 lawyers, 5 staffers. We're very grateful for what y'all do. And I personally, I am, and I think I speak for my family too. The Layrissons are big believers in the organization, and I thank you for that. What have been some lessons you've learned rising to business leadership, community leadership in kind of uncertain times? You go from a volunteer, just being a good Samaritan to carry something, to the president during, these kind of times. What lessons have been learned?
Well, let me say there's 17 of us on the board. There's 10 board members, 7 associates. All but one of us have full-time jobs. My treasurer puts in 40 hours a week on top of the job that she already has. So I just
Wow.
want to
So
say
it's like
thanks.
a whole second full-time
Yep.
job to be the treasurer. Wow. That's impressive.
And she's not the only one. There are plenty of
Mhm.
us that put in, dozens of hours in a week. And I just want to thank them for that because, we don't have a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
So we're carrying a lot of the load, and I just want to say thank them for that.
So if folks were sitting around with time on their hands, maybe recently retired, maybe, whatever circumstances, what are some ways folks could help the chamber that might lighten the load of you and your other board members?
Well, currently our office is by appointment only because we don't have anybody to staff it. So, if they wanted to come sit in the office and answer phones or emails, that would help out tremendously.
That's a great point. So, folks, if you're listening to this, Ponchatoula Chamber of Commerce, it's a volunteer organization. We don't have any full-time staff. So, if you're a little old lady out there or a bored retired man or anybody in between, and you have some time and the ability to answer phones and man an office or work an office, please consider that. Thank you for doing that, Brandon. As I mentioned, I'm very grateful to you for that. But the chamber is not the only organization you're stepping up with on a leadership basis. I see it firsthand in Rotary, where you've been a huge asset to us. You're one of our newer members, but for graybeards like me that have been in the club for 20 plus years and are looking a decade or more since the days when we served as president, it's a breath of fresh air for you and some of the other members to be in there and stepping up. Rotary's motto is service above self, and you just seem to kind of live that. What's Rotary like, in your life and in any other organization you're involved with? I guess I'm kind of asking, what are you into and why?
Well, like you mentioned, I am kind of new to Rotary, but it has introduced me to a lot of selfless people in Ponchatoula that I wouldn't have met otherwise. Business leaders, civic leaders, just a lot of great connections, and people that are willing and apparently love to help and do whatever they can for Ponchatoula.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. You're also in the American Legion, and you mentioned earlier your military service. What role has that played in your life, and how's it connect to your past as a Marine?
Um, the volunteering and the being involved in the community is kind of new to me. The chamber kind of propelled me into these other places and positions. But I've always been one to want to help other people when I can. And like I said, the chamber has put me in touch with Rotary and the Legion, and honestly, the crew of Omega too. And all three of those organizations do a lot of community outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe some of that same inner drive to serve that you channeled in early life through the Marines. You're out there protecting and serving a country in a very intense way. And here, later in life, each of these organizations we talk about are limited. It sounds like part-time is more full-time in chamber world, but it's a way for you to give back, and that sounds really neat. But it sounds like the makings of that Rotarian and that service above self has kind of always been there for you, or you wouldn't have served in the ROTC as far back as high school and enlisted in the Marine Corps as a teenager and really traveled all over the world to serve us, and then get back to New Orleans and near mama as quick as you can. Let's talk, if you will, moving from kind of the community service stuff into the social stuff, because Crew of Omega has been around forever, and it's a heck of a good time. It's a wonderful tradition, and you are the current king. So will you tell us first about the crew and next about your role in it as the monarch of the age?
The Crew of Omega was started in '86 by some Southeastern students. Here we are in our 40th year. And I've been trying to reconnect with Southeastern, some of the alums, and even some of the fraternities and sororities to try to get them more involved. We currently have about 97 paying members in the crew. The rest of what you see in the parade is people who have paid entry fees to either walk, ride, or perform. And as you mentioned, I'm the king this year, Omega 40, which was a surprise because this is only
pretty cool. Yeah. Okay.
Only my second year in the crew. And I've kind of made it my, I guess, my personal mission to help recruit more riders to grow the crew as a whole.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. So how can folks get involved with Crew of Omega, or where could they find out about it? What's the process if they wanted to get y'all over that 100-member mark?
Crewofomega.org has all the information about the crew. It has the membership applications. If you're curious, interested, but don't know if you're ready to commit, just reach out to me. I'll bring you to some of the events that we do and see if it's a good fit for you.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So now I want to finally move into the topic of your business. We're talking about the logo that's on your chest there, Sherman's Glass, which has long been an institution. Everybody around here knew and loved Sherman when Sherman was running Sherman's Glass. But I want to begin by congratulating you, because I think in this thing, which is probably now maybe months old, September 27th, so about a month ago, you guys were voted best in the parish for, I think, the 7th year in a row. Is that right?
In a row, yeah.
Wow. So congrats on that. That's a heck of an accomplishment. So clearly the voters have chosen. You're the best. Tell us about your business. The best at what? What does Sherman's Glass do?
Sherman's Glass was started in May of '77 by my uncle, Brandon Phares. He held on to it until 2016 when he decided it was time to retire and left it to my dad. My dad's pushing 72, so he's like, it's your turn. Automotive, residential, commercial glass, everything from sunroofs to shower doors. So
I can't tell you how many Larisons have filed through there. I mean, when I look back to my youth and all the windshields we digged up, and it's you guys have served us well over the years. What's it like stepping into a family business? As you mentioned, your uncle. I mean, May of '77. Heck, I was 3 months old at that time. I think maybe 2 months old still. So it's way back. Okay. What's it like going into something that your dad, your uncle established and ran for all that time?
honestly, it was a lot of pressure at first because as you
Yeah,
kind of mentioned in your opening, Sherman's is a Ponchatoula institution. Everybody knows Sherman's, and that was a lot of pressure to make sure that I'm the one that makes sure we at least get to 50 years. You know, just to make sure I can keep the doors open. And that was a lot. It was heavy at first.
I bet. So when is do you have so May of I guess the 27th. So you guys are not getting pretty close there, right? Less than 2 years away. Or
Less
do
than
you
two
have
years.
anything big planned? I mean, is the King of Omega and having by then you'll be a former president of the chamber. You have all this event experience in your rear view from big soirees. Are you thinking about doing something big to celebrate it? Because 50 years is a major accomplishment for any business.
It is. And you know, my dad used to do something at Ferris Glass when he owned it. Every year he'd have a crawfish boil for customer appreciation. And I'm thinking we just have a massive crawfish boil.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I got to tell you, we do. And you're probably thinking of something much bigger, but in my little firm, as I mentioned, we're a small outfit. We have about 10 employees, and at most a couple hundred clients at a time. But what we love to do for current clients, past clients, and other friends and family are these little outdoor events. The last week we had a barbecue. Our friend Morris Masham with Tootsie's Barbecue and Catering cooked us some delicious food. We've done the taco truck. Back when Nola Mia was still a pizza truck, we did pizzas, and it's the best thing in the world to kind of take, for me, clients, for you customers, take these folks that you see and because you appreciate they're helping you pay your bills every month. You really appreciate them, but you just see them in kind of a business context, and you're the guy with the invoice, and they're the person with the problem that you're hoping to help solve. So it's something magical about getting out there in Louisiana, usually in the heat, let's face it, and eating some good food, whether it's barbecue or crawfish or whatever. It's really, really neat. So I think you're onto a good idea there. It certainly served us well doing that. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, because I always think I'm going to show up the next Monday, because our events are typically on a Friday afternoon or evening. And I'm thinking, man, my team's going to be pissed. We usually get off at noon on Fridays, and it's digging in. And I'm sure it's, a hassle in that they're working extra and later. But when we show up for our Monday morning team meeting the following week, the smiles are from ear to ear, and people are just so grateful for that kind of, let your hair down fun time with people that we usually do business with. And so that's a cool idea. Well, what else should we know about Sherman's Glass? Is there anything else you want to share about your business? I know I promised with you earlier, I do my best to get you out of here on time. I want to honor that pledge. But before I do, is there something about your business you'd like to share? Maybe something folks should know that they don't?
As far as I know, or to the best of my knowledge, we're the only place in the area that installs or replaces sunroofs if they get cracked or broken. Before we started doing it, we used to have to send everybody to a place in Baton Rouge. But
That's clutch to know. I had no idea. And my wife's car and mine have sunroofs. They seem to be more and more prevalent to becoming standard. I mean, we drive Hondas. So, in the old days, you had to have something super fancy to have a sunroof. Now they seem to be putting those bad boys in just about everything that comes off the line. And so to know that you don't have to drive to Baton Rouge is huge, because that traffic is brutal. I'll be facing it tomorrow driving into LSU for a Board of Trustees meeting, and I'm not looking forward to it, 24 hours in advance. What about in your other stuff? And we can hit, whether we're talking chamber, Crew of Omega, American Legion, Rotary, personal, anything. Is there anything else on your mind, on your heart, just anything you want to share with our viewers and listeners before we go?
If you are a veteran in the Ponchatoula area, first Thursday of the month, 5:30, come see us at the Legion Hall, 500 East Pine Street. We'd love to have you.
And folks, 500 East Pine, it's right there, kind of near the big fire station, the newer fire station by First Street. That's a wonderful invitation. And Brandon, I thank you for your service to our country, to our local community, to all these great clubs and organizations we're talking about. Ponchatoula is a better place because you're here. I'm so glad that you kind of decided to come back. Yeah, I know you had a split time in youth, right, between kind of school back home and then you meet where you grew up, school down this way at Champ Cooper. But I'm so glad that your family set it up for you to come down here and run this business, because you're a real asset to our community, and I appreciate you. So thank you for being here. To our viewers, our listeners, I thank you all for your time. We'll be back next week. And until then, we just say goodbye and hope y'all have a great weekend.